I was sitting in my Manhattan office pen, hovering over the final signature line of the lakehouse purchase agreement, when my phone erupted with my father's ringtone. $425,000. The number had haunted my dreams for months as I juggled cases, cut expenses, and worked myself to exhaustion. But it was worth it. I could already picture Mom's face when she saw the wraparound porch dad fishing from the dock at sunset, both of them finally at peace after decades of hard work. The contract lay before me, ready to be signed. My hand moved toward the paper. Then the call came. Dad's voice cracked through the speaker, barely recognizable through the panic. "Sophia, you need to come home right now." "It's Leo. Oh God, your mother." The line filled with sounds that would replay in my nightmares for months. Screaming. Something crashing. Children shrieking. And underneath it all, my mother's sobs, raw and terrified. "Dad, what's happening?" I was already standing, my heart hammering against my ribs. "He's taken the house. He changed the locks. Your mother, Please, Sophia, we need you." The call ended abruptly. If you're listening to this story and you've ever felt that moment when your entire world tilts on its axis, when you realize the people you love are in danger and you're the only one who can help them, please hit that like button and subscribe. Comment below if you've ever had to stand up to family who crossed a line. Because what I'm about to tell you changed everything. But to understand how we got here, I need to take you back. Back to where this nightmare really began. 6 months earlier, I had done something I thought was beautiful. Something I believed would secure my parents' future and give them the retirement they deserved. I established an irrevocable trust and purchased a stunning lake house property worth $425,000. Every clause was carefully drafted. My parents were the sole beneficiaries. I was the trustee. The property could not be sold, rented, or transferred without my explicit written consent. It was airtight. Or so I thought. My parents had worked their fingers to the bone their entire lives. Dad spent 37 years as a machinist, coming home with hands stained with grease and a back that ached more with each passing year. Mom worked double shifts as a nurse, missing family dinners and holidays, always putting everyone else first. They'd raised 3 children in a cramped 2-bedroom apartment in Queens, sacrificing everything so we could have opportunities they never had. I was the eldest. The one who got out. Law school at Columbia, a position at a prestigious firm partnership track. I'd made it. And I wanted nothing more than to give back to the 2 people who'd given me everything. My brother Leo was a different story. Leo was the middle child, and he'd spent his entire life perfecting the art of taking without giving. At 42, he'd bounced between jobs, always having an excuse for why things didn't work out. It was never his fault. The boss was unreasonable. The coworkers were jealous. The commute was too long. Meanwhile, Mom and Dad bailed him out time and time again. Rent money, car payments, credit card debt. They couldn't say no to him. Then there was Chloe, his wife of 15 years. She'd married Leo when he still had that charming, easygoing persona that masked his entitlement. By the time she realized who she'd really married, they had 3 kids and she'd bought into his victim narrative completely. Together, they were a toxic duo, always scheming for the next handout, always playing the sympathy card. Our youngest sister Emma had moved to Seattle years ago and kept her distance from the family drama. Smart woman. When I told my parents about the lake house, Mom cried. Actually cried tears of joy. Dad hugged me so tight I could barely breathe. "You didn't have to do this, sweetheart," he whispered. But I did. After everything they'd sacrificed, I absolutely did. I made one critical mistake. I told Leo. "That's amazing, sis," he'd said over the phone, his voice dripping with false enthusiasm. "Mom and Dad really deserve it. You're so generous." There was something in his tone, a edge I couldn't quite place. I ignored it. I wanted to believe my brother was capable of being happy for someone else. The warning signs started small. Leo began calling Mom and Dad more frequently, suddenly interested in their lives after years of only calling when he needed money. He dropped by their apartment unannounced with Chloe and the kids. At first, my parents were thrilled. "Leo's really turning things around," Mom told me. "He wants to spend more time with us." I should have known better. Then came the casual questions. "So when are you moving to the lake house?" Leo would ask. "Have you thought about what you'll do with your apartment? Innocent enough?" But Chloe started following up with comments about how big the house was. 6 bedrooms seems like a lot for just the 2 of you. You could rent some out. Make some income. Help with property taxes. My father, ever the peacekeeper, would just smile and change the subject. but I could see the discomfort in his eyes during our video calls. I'd made the purchase official in March. By May, my parents had moved in. They sent me photos every day. Mom's garden starting to bloom. Dad's new fishing boat tied to the dock. They looked younger somehow, the stress of city life melting away. This was everything I'd hoped for. That's when Leo made his move. It started with a visit. Just dropping by to see the new place, he said. Mom was thrilled to have the grandkids for the weekend. She cooked Leo's favorite meals, made up the guest rooms with fresh linens, planned activities for the children. She was so happy. Leo and Chloe showed up on a Friday evening in June with their 3 kids aged 8, 11, and 14, along with enough suitcases for a month-long stay. Just a long weekend, Chloe had promised. That should have been my second warning. By Sunday evening, they hadn't left. The kids are having such a great time, Leo said. You don't mind if we stay a few more days, do you, Mom? What could she say? She'd never been able to deny him anything. A few more days turned into a week. Then 2. My parents' calls became shorter, more strained. Everything's fine, Mom would insist, but I could hear the exhaustion in her voice. The kids are just energetic. I was buried in a major case working 16-hour days. I should have paid more attention. I should have flown out immediately. But I didn't. And that's when everything fell apart. 3 weeks into their visit, Leo announced to my parents over breakfast that he and Chloe had made a decision. They were moving in permanently. The house was big enough. It was family property. And since Mom and Dad were getting older, they'd need help maintaining it anyway. He'd already started looking at schools for the kids in the area. My father tried to protest. This was Sophia's gift, he explained. She'd set it up specifically for them. They couldn't just invite people to move in. Leo's face had darkened. So you're saying your grandchildren aren't welcome in your home? That family doesn't matter anymore. Sophia's bought you, is that it? The manipulation was textbook and it worked. Mom immediately backtracked, trying to smooth things over. No, of course the kids are always welcome. We just need to talk to Sophia first, but Leo wasn't hearing it. He'd already made up his mind. That evening, while my parents were taking a walk to clear their heads and discuss what to do, Leo called a locksmith. By the time Mom and Dad returned, the locks had been changed. Their keys didn't work. When Dad knocked on the door of his own house, Leo opened it with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Sorry, security measure. Can't be too careful out here. I'll get you new keys made tomorrow. But tomorrow came and went. No keys. When Dad asked again, Leo said the locksmith was backed up. Then it was that he'd ordered special locks. Then he simply stopped answering. My parents were locked out of rooms in their own home. Their bedroom. The study where Dad kept his woodworking tools. The garage. Chloe took over the kitchen, rearranging everything, throwing out Mom's carefully organized spice collection to make room for her bulk buys from Costco. She redecorated the living room, pushing my parents' modest furniture into a storage room and replacing it with garish pieces she'd ordered online. When Mom objected, Chloe sighed dramatically. I'm just trying to help modernize things. Don't you want the house to look nice? The kids ran wild. They'd been taught no boundaries, no respect. The 8-year-old drew on the walls with permanent marker. The 11-year-old left food rotting under beds. The 14-year-old blasted music at all hours and ignored my grandmother when she asked him to turn it down. My parents' peaceful retirement had become a nightmare. But the worst was yet to come. 2 months in, Chloe started posting photos on social media. Beautiful shots of the lake house carefully staged to look like a luxury vacation rental. Our family's beautiful summer home, she captioned them, tagging local real estate groups and vacation rental pages. Within days, she'd started getting inquiries. My mother discovered her responding to messages negotiating rates for weekend rentals. When Mom confronted her, Chloe was indignant. We're just trying to offset costs. The property taxes are expensive. The utilities are high. We all live here now, so we should all contribute to expenses. Or do you expect Leo and me to live here for free? The gaslighting was masterful. She made it sound like my parents were the unreasonable ones. Like they were freeloaders in the home I'd bought specifically for them. My father called me that night, his voice heavy with defeat. He explained everything. The locks. The redecoration. The rental scheme. I don't know what to do, Sophia. We've tried talking to him, but he just gets angry. Says we're ungrateful. That we're choosing you over our own grandchildren. Your mother is beside herself. I was furious. Beyond furious. But I was also 3,000 miles away, drowning in depositions and court filings. I'll handle it, Dad, I promised. Let me make some calls. I'll get this sorted out. I started with a phone call to Leo. Reasonable. Professional. I explained that the house was held in an irrevocable trust, that my parents were the beneficiaries, that he had no legal right to change locks, make renovations, or certainly not to rent out rooms. You need to leave, Leo. This isn't your house. His response chilled me. You always thought you were better than me, didn't you? Miss Big Shot Lawyer. You buy mom and dad a house and suddenly you own them. This is a family home. I have just as much right to be here as they do. More actually, since I have kids to raise. Or are you saying your nieces and nephew don't matter? That's not what I'm saying, and you know it. Do I? Because it seems pretty clear to me. You want mom and dad all to yourself. You want them to forget they have other children. Well, guess what, Sophia? I'm not going anywhere. If you want me out, you'll have to drag me out yourself. He hung up. I sat in my office staring at my phone, my hands shaking with rage. I dealt with bullies before. Opposing counsel who thought they could intimidate me. Hostile witnesses who lied under oath. But this was different. This was my brother. The same person who used to build blanket forts with me when we were kids. Who I'd protected from schoolyard bullies. Who I'd helped with homework and driven to baseball practice. When had he become this? Over the next month, things escalated. Leo hired a security company, installing cameras and motion sensors all over the property. He told my parents it was for their protection, but the cameras were positioned to monitor their movements. Mom felt like a prisoner in her own home. She started spending more time in her bedroom, the one space that still felt like hers. Leo began inviting his friends over. Loud parties that went late into the night. When Dad asked them to keep it down, Leo told him to lighten up. You're too old to understand how to have fun anymore. The disrespect was breathtaking. Chloe made good on her rental plans. She listed the house on 3 different vacation rental sites without telling anyone. The first guests showed up on a Tuesday afternoon, confused when my father answered the door and said there must be a mistake. Chloe rushed to smooth things over, offering them a complimentary upgrade to the guest cottage. My parents didn't have a guest cottage. She'd rented out their bedroom. Mom and Dad spent that night sleeping on a pull-out couch in the basement, which Leo had claimed as his man cave, complete with a pool table and a bar. My mother, 72 years old, who'd worked her entire life, was sleeping in a basement while strangers occupied her bed. That's when Dad made the call that changed everything. I was in the middle of closing the biggest case of my career. A corporate merger worth millions. My client was depending on me. The senior partners were watching. This was my moment to prove I deserved to make equity partner. The deal was set to close in 3 days. I'd been working day and night for 6 months to make it happen. But when I heard my father's voice on the phone that morning, broken and desperate, none of that mattered anymore. Sophia, please. We can't do this anymore. Leo, he locked your mother in a room. She was trying to stop Chloe from selling off her china cabinet, the one from her grandmother, and Leo grabbed her arm and pushed her into the bedroom and locked the door. She was screaming. The kids were crying. I tried to break down the door, but he threatened to call the police on me. Said I was being violent. Chloe was filming the whole thing on her phone, probably to use against us. Sophia, I'm scared. I'm scared of my own son. Please come home. We need you. I didn't hesitate. I called my assistant. Cancel everything. Reschedule the merger closing. I don't care if the partners are upset. Family emergency. I booked a seat on the next private charter I could find. Money was no object. During the 4-hour flight, I reviewed every piece of documentation related to the trust. Every clause. Every provision. And I made phone calls. So many phone calls. To my old law school friend who now worked as a prosecutor. To the local sheriff's department where the lakehouse was located. To a security firm I'd worked with on a case last year. To my firm's private investigator. By the time the plane touched down, I had an army assembled and a plan in place. I'd also made one more call. To Mark, a former police chief who'd retired and started a private security company. I need you at this address in 2 hours, I told him. Bring your team. This is going to get ugly. When I pulled up to the lake house at 6:30 in the evening, golden hour light glinting off the lake, the scene before me was worse than I'd imagined. This place that was supposed to be a sanctuary looked like a war zone. The yard was littered with trash. Beer bottles, plastic bags, cigarette butts. The garden my mother had so carefully planted was trampled flowers torn up. A section of the fence was broken. And through the large front windows I could see chaos inside. I took a breath, grabbed my briefcase containing all the legal documents I needed, and walked to the front door. My key didn't work, of course. Leo had made sure of that. So I knocked. Pounded really. And I waited. Chloe answered, her face flushing when she saw me. Sophia, we didn't know you were coming. Leo didn't mention. She was trying to block the doorway, but I pushed past her. Not aggressively, but firmly. I was done being polite. The inside of the house was devastated. The beautiful hardwood floors I'd had refinished were scratched and scuffed. The walls had holes in them. Someone had spilled red wine on the cream-colored carpet and hadn't bothered to clean it up. My mother's carefully chosen artwork had been taken down and replaced with tacky prints of sports cars and beer logos. And there in the middle of the living room was Leo. He was on the phone laughing loudly at something, feet propped up on the coffee table, beer in hand. When he saw me, his expression shifted from surprise to annoyance to something like calculated smugness. "Hey, let me call you back," he said into the phone. Then looking at me, well, the prodigal daughter returns. "Come to check on your investment. Where are our parents?" My voice was ice. He gestured vaguely toward the back of the house. "Around somewhere. Your mom's been whining all day about some dishes or something. You know how she gets. I found them in the kitchen. Or what was left of the kitchen. Cabinets hung open, dishes piled high in the sink. The smell of rotting food hit me like a physical force. And there, standing by the counter with a kitchen knife clutched in her shaking hand, was my mother. She looked 10 years older than when I'd last seen her. Her hair was a mess. Her clothes were stained. Her eyes were wild with fear and exhaustion. When she saw me, she let out a sob and nearly dropped the knife. "Sophia. Oh God, Sophia, you came." I crossed the room in 3 strides and pulled her into my arms. She collapsed against me, her whole body shaking. "I'm here, Mom. I'm here." "Where's Dad?" "He's locked in the study." Leo put a padlock on the door. Said Dad needed to cool off after he tried to defend me. "Sophia, I don't know what to do." I tried to stop them from selling my things, and Leo, "I know, Mom. Dad told me. It's over. I'm ending this right now." I guided her to a chair, made sure she was steady, and then I went to find the study. Sure enough, there was a padlock on the door. I could hear Dad moving around inside. "Dad." "It's Sophia." "Stand back from the door." I didn't have the key, but I had something better. I called Mark. "I'm here. Bring the bolt cutters." Now. While I waited for Mark to arrive, I went back to the living room. Leo was still there now, with his feet up, scrolling through his phone like he owned the place. Chloe had disappeared somewhere upstairs. The kids were nowhere to be seen, which was probably for the best. "Leo, we need to talk." He didn't even look up. "So talk. You and Chloe need to leave. Today. Right now." That got his attention. He laughed, a sharp, bitter sound. "Oh, that's rich. You fly in here and think you can just kick us out. This is a family home, Sophia. We're family. Or doesn't that matter to you anymore? This is not a family home. This is a property held in an irrevocable trust with Mom and Dad as the sole beneficiaries. You have no legal right to be here. You changed locks without authorization. You've been renting out rooms illegally. You've committed assault and false imprisonment. Would you like me to continue?" His face darkened. "You don't know what you're talking about. We live here. We have rights." "No, you don't. And if you don't leave voluntarily in the next 15 minutes, I will have you arrested for trespassing, breaking and entering, assault, false imprisonment, and fraud. Oh, and I'll be filing a civil suit for damages which, based on what I've seen so far, will easily top $200,000. He stood up, his jaw clenched. "You wouldn't do that to your own brother. Watch me." At that moment, Mark arrived with 3 members of his security team. They were all former law enforcement, broad-shouldered and professional. Mark took one look at the situation and immediately understood. "Ma'am," he nodded to me. Then to Leo, "Sir, I'm going to need you to step aside." Leo's bravado crumbled. "Just a bit. Who the hell are you?" "Private security. Miss Sophia has engaged our services to ensure the safety of the legal residents of this property. Now I understand there's a locked door that needs opening." Within minutes, Mark had cut through the padlock and freed my father. Dad emerged looking shell-shocked, but when he saw me, his eyes filled with tears. "You came," he whispered. "I didn't think you'd be able to get away." "Of course I came. I will always come." Leo was pacing, now agitated. He pulled out his phone and I could tell he was about to call someone. His lawyer friend, probably. The one he'd mentioned who was going to help him sue me for discrimination against him and his family. I'd done my research. The guy had graduated from a bottom-tier law school, barely passed the bar on his third try, and had a disciplinary record longer than my arm. He wouldn't last 5 minutes against me. But I didn't let it get that far. I pulled out my phone and dialed the number I'd programmed earlier. Sheriff Thompson. This is Sophia Martinez. Yes, the attorney. I'm at the lakehouse property as we discussed. I need to report a home invasion in progress, assault, false imprisonment, and illegal rental activity. Yes, I'll hold. Leo's face went white. You called the cops? Are you insane? No, I'm a lawyer. And I know how to protect my clients. In this case, my clients are our parents. Chloe came running down the stairs, clearly having heard the commotion. What's going on? Leo, are those security guards? Your husband and you are about to be arrested unless you leave immediately, I said calmly. I'm offering you one chance. 1. You have 15 minutes to gather your personal belongings and get off this property. Anything you leave behind will be donated to charity. You will return the rental income you've collected illegally. You will pay for all damages. And you will sign a legally binding agreement to never set foot on this property again, without explicit written permission from me as trustee. Or option 2, you can wait for Sheriff Thompson to arrive and we can do this the hard way. You can't do this, Chloe shrieked. This is our home. Our kids go to school here. Your kids haven't attended a single day of school here. I checked. You never enrolled them. And as for this being your home, let me be very clear. You have no claim, legal or otherwise, to this property. 0. I have all the documentation right here. I held up my briefcase. Deed. Trust documents. Communications establishing that you were never invited to move in. Security footage from the cameras you installed showing you changing the locks and assaulting my mother. Would you like me to play that footage for the sheriff when he arrives? I'm sure the local news would be interested too. Leo looked at Chloe. Chloe looked at Leo. I could see the reality sinking in. They'd overplayed their hand and they knew it. Fine, Leo spat. We'll go. But this isn't over, Sophia. You're tearing this family apart. No, Leo. You did that all by yourself. You had a choice. You chose greed. Now you get to live with the consequences. Sheriff Thompson arrived exactly 14 minutes later. I'd met him once before at a community charity event I'd sponsored. He was a good man, fair but firm. When he walked in and saw the state of the house, his expression hardened. Miss Martinez. Mr. and Mrs. Martinez Sr. Folks, I walked him through everything calmly and professionally, providing documentation for each claim. The trust paperwork, the original deed, the recordings of my parents' calls, screenshots of Chloe's rental listings, photos of the damaged property, the security footage showing the assault. By the time I was finished, Sheriff Thompson was shaking his head. This is about as clear-cut as it gets, he said. He turned to Leo and Chloe. You have 2 options. You can leave voluntarily right now, or I can arrest you both for criminal trespass, assault, and fraud. Your choice. We're leaving, Chloe said, quickly grabbing Leo's arm before he could say something stupid. Come on. Let's get the kids. They stormed upstairs. I could hear drawers slamming, angry muttering. The kids started crying, confused and scared. Part of me felt bad for them. This wasn't their fault, but I couldn't let that stop me from doing what needed to be done. 20 minutes later, they emerged with hastily packed suitcases and garbage bags full of clothes. The kids looked frightened. The youngest, Mia, was clutching a stuffed rabbit and crying. The middle child, Jason, looked angry. The oldest, Tyler, just looked resigned, like he'd seen this kind of thing before. As they filed past me toward the door, Tyler paused. Aunt Sophia. Yes, sweetheart. I'm sorry. For what my parents did. It wasn't right. His voice cracked. He was only 14, trying to be brave. My heart broke for him. I know, Tyler. And I appreciate you saying that. This isn't about you kids. You understand that, right? He nodded, not meeting my eyes, and followed his parents out. Leo stopped at the door, turning back to look at me. For just a moment, I saw something in his face. Regret, maybe. Or just embarrassment at being caught. You'll regret this, Sophia. Family is supposed to stick together. Family doesn't steal from each other, Leo. Family doesn't assault elderly parents and lock them in rooms. You made your choice. Live with it. He left without another word. Chloe shot me one last poisonous glare before climbing into their SUV, which I noted was packed to the roof with items that didn't belong to them. I made a mental note to document that as well. Mark and his team stayed for another hour, helping to change all the locks properly this time. They installed a proper security system, one that my parents controlled, not Leo. By the time they left, the house was secure. Mom and Dad sat on the couch together, holding hands, looking stunned. "Is it really over?" Mom asked quietly. "The immediate crisis is over," I told them. "But there's still work to do. Legal work. We need to file for a restraining order. Document all the damages. Pursue restitution for the rental income they stole and the property they damaged. And we need to make sure this never happens again." Dad looked at me, his eyes red-rimmed. "I'm sorry, sweetheart. We should have stopped this sooner. We should have called you right away instead of trying to handle it ourselves." "No, Dad. I'm sorry. I should have seen this coming. I should have put more protections in place. I knew what Leo was like. I thought the trust would be enough, but I underestimated how far he'd go." We spent that night cleaning, all three of us working together to reclaim the house. We threw away trash-scrubbed floors, rehung Mom's artwork. It was therapeutic in a way. Each cleaned surface, each restored room was a step toward normalcy. Around midnight, we sat in the kitchen with cups of tea, exhausted but calmer. "What happens now?" Mom asked. "Now we make sure Leo faces consequences. Real ones. No more bailing him out. No more second chances. He needs to learn that actions have consequences." Over the next week, I worked remotely from the lakehouse, handling my cases while also building the legal case against Leo. I filed for a restraining order, which was granted immediately given the evidence. I sent a formal demand letter requiring him to return all rental income and pay for damages. I documented everything in preparation for a civil suit. But Leo wasn't done. Not by a long shot. He launched a social media campaign. Suddenly, I was the villain in his carefully crafted narrative. Posts appeared across Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram painting me as a cruel, heartless sister who'd stolen my parents away from their loving son and grandchildren. He claimed I'd manipulated our elderly parents, isolated them, and turned them against their own family. He posted photos of the kids looking sad with captions like "Haven't seen Grandma and Grandpa in weeks thanks to my sister." Never mind that it had been less than a week since he was forcibly removed. Never mind that he'd assaulted our mother and imprisoned our father. In Leo's version of events, he was the victim. The post spread. People who didn't know the full story started commenting. "Family is everything. You should never abandon your siblings. Those poor children." Some of Leo's friends even started harassing me directly, sending angry messages to my work email and calling my office. Then came the really nasty part. Aunt Beatrice got involved. She was Dad's older sister, a woman who'd never liked my mother and who'd always favored Leo. She'd resented Mom for trapping her baby brother with a pregnancy, never mind that my parents had been in love and had chosen to marry. Beatrice had been stirring up family drama for decades. She called Mom, screaming about how ashamed she was. How could Mom turn her back on her own grandchildren? How could she let me poison her mind against Leo? Didn't she realize she was destroying the family? Mom tried to explain what had really happened, but Beatrice didn't want to hear it. She'd already chosen Leo's side, probably because Leo had spent years cultivating her support while I'd been focused on my career. The pressure was immense. Mom started doubting herself. "Maybe we were too harsh," she said one night. "Maybe we should have tried harder to make it work. The kids shouldn't suffer because of their parents' mistakes." I sat down with her, took her hands. "Mom, listen to me. Those children are Leo and Chloe's responsibility, not yours. You can love them without letting their parents abuse you. Setting boundaries doesn't make you a bad grandmother. It makes you a healthy person who refuses to be mistreated." But the doubt had taken root. Then the situation at work exploded. Marcus Richter was a partner at my firm, someone I'd competed with for years. We'd both been on the equity partner track, and there was only room for one of us in the next round. He was smart, ruthless, and deeply ambitious, and he saw Leo's social media campaign as an opportunity. Suddenly, rumors were circulating at the office. Sophia was involved in a nasty family dispute, questions about her judgment, concerns about her stability. One of my major clients received an anonymous email detailing the situation with my brother, suggesting that if I could be so cruel to my own family, how could I be trusted with their business interests? I knew it was Marcus. The timing was too convenient. The information too specific. He'd done his research, probably hired someone to dig into my personal life. And he was using it against me. I walked into his office without knocking. "We need to talk." He looked up from his computer, all false concern. "Sophia, I've been meaning to check in. I heard you've been dealing with some family issues. If you need time off, we can reassign your cases. Cut the crap, Marcus. I know what you're doing. The emails to my clients. The whisper campaign. It stops now. He leaned back in his chair, not even bothering to deny it. I don't know what you're talking about. But if your personal drama is affecting your professional reputation, maybe you should think about why that is. My personal life is none of your business or anyone else's. And if you continue to interfere with my client relationships, I will file a complaint with the ethics board so fast your head will spin. Good luck with that. From what I hear, you're the one with ethics problems. Stealing a house from your family. That's what people are saying. People are saying what you're telling them to say. And all of it is defamatory. Keep pushing, Marcus, and you'll find out exactly how good of a lawyer I am. Because I will bury you. I left before he could respond, my hands shaking with fury. But I'd meant every word. Nobody threatened my career. Not Leo, not Marcus, nobody. I spent the next 2 weeks in war mode. I documented every piece of evidence against Leo. I hired a private investigator to track his movements and financial transactions. I discovered that he and Chloe had rented out my parents' home to 5 different parties over the course of 2 months, collecting over $12,000 in illegal rental income. They'd spent it all on purchases for themselves. New furniture for their storage unit. New clothes. A vacation to Florida. Not a penny had gone to property maintenance or utilities as Chloe had claimed. I compiled everything into a comprehensive legal filing. Trespass. Theft. Fraud. Assault. False imprisonment. The list went on. And I filed a civil suit seeking not just restitution but punitive damages. I wanted Leo to understand that there were real consequences for his actions. I also went after Marcus. I documented every instance of him spreading false information, every client he'd contacted, every rumor he'd started. I built an ethics complaint that was ironclad. Then I scheduled a meeting with the managing partner of our firm. Richard Bradford was old school. He'd built the firm from nothing 40 years ago, and he had zero tolerance for office politics interfering with client service. I laid out everything for him. The family situation. The truth of what had happened. Marcus's campaign against me. The potential liability to the firm if Marcus's actions cost us clients. Richard listened without interrupting. When I finished, he was silent for a long moment. Then he said, "Thank you for bringing this to my attention, Sophia. Leave it with me." 2 days later, Marcus was called into Richard's office. I don't know exactly what was said, but Marcus emerged pale and shaken. The rumors stopped immediately. He avoided me in the hallways. And when the equity partner decision came down 3 weeks later, I got the position. Meanwhile, Leo's situation was deteriorating rapidly. The restraining order meant he couldn't contact my parents. His social media campaign had backfired when several family friends who knew the truth started commenting on his posts, calling him out. Aunt Beatrice, when confronted with actual evidence of what Leo had done, including the security footage, suddenly became very quiet. Leo and Chloe's marriage started to crack under the pressure. According to Emma, who'd started communicating with Tyler after he reached out to her, they were fighting constantly. Chloe blamed Leo for his stupid plan. Leo blamed Chloe for being too obvious. They were drowning in debt, facing legal bills they couldn't pay, and now dealing with my civil suit on top of everything else. Their lawyer, the incompetent friend Leo had relied on, withdrew from the case after I filed a motion, pointing out his numerous conflicts of interest and potential ethical violations. They couldn't afford to hire a competent replacement. 4 months after I'd kicked them out of the lakehouse, Leo's whole house of cards collapsed. They'd been renting a small apartment in a rundown complex using the last of their savings. When my civil suit went to court, the judge ruled entirely in my favor. Leo and Chloe were ordered to pay restitution of $12,000 for the illegal rental income, $35,000 for property damages, $15,000 for my parents' pain and suffering, and $20,000 for my legal fees. A total of $82,000. They didn't have it. They declared bankruptcy. But bankruptcy doesn't discharge willful and malicious injury judgments. The debt would follow them forever. Their credit was destroyed. Chloe filed for divorce, taking the kids and moving back in with her parents in another state. Leo, alone and broke, ended up sleeping on a friend's couch. I felt no sympathy. I'd given him every opportunity to do the right thing. He'd chosen greed, manipulation, and abuse. Now he was living with the consequences. But the story doesn't end there. About 6 months after everything came to a head, I received an unexpected text message. It was from Tyler, my nephew. Aunt Sophia, can we talk? We met at a coffee shop halfway between where I was working and where he was living, with his mother and maternal grandparents. He was taller than I remembered, almost 6 feet. He looked older too. Sadder. I'm sorry, he said before I could even sit down. I'm so sorry for what my dad did. For what my mom did. For everything. Tyler, sweetheart, you don't need to apologize. None of this was your fault. But I knew. I didn't know how bad it was, but I knew they were doing something wrong. And I didn't say anything. I didn't want to cause problems. I thought maybe if I stayed quiet, everything would work out. My heart broke for him. This kid barely into high school carrying guilt that wasn't his to bear. You were a child in an impossible situation. Your parents are the adults. They're the ones responsible. We talked for 2 hours. He told me about how chaotic things had been at home even before the lake house. The constant money problems. His parents fighting. The lies they told to different people to get what they needed. He'd learned not to trust anything they said. Mom's getting help now, he said. Therapy. She's trying to figure out why she went along with Dad's schemes for so long. And she's working, like actually working. 2 jobs. Trying to pay some bills. He paused. Dad's still making excuses. Blaming everyone else. I don't talk to him much anymore. How do you feel about that, I asked. Relieved mostly. Is that bad? No, honey. It's not bad. It's healthy. You're allowed to protect yourself even from family. He looked at me, his eyes so earnest. I want to be different. I want to be like you. Someone who does things the right way. Who works hard and doesn't take shortcuts. Would you? Would you maybe help me? Not with money or anything. Just like advice sometimes. About college, about life. I reached across the table and squeezed his hand. Tyler, I would be honored. We stayed in touch after that. I helped him navigate the college application process. Wrote him recommendation letters. Introduced him to some colleagues who could give him internship opportunities. He had his father's charm but without the manipulation. His mother's social intelligence but without the enabling. He was going to be okay. As for my parents, they flourished. The lake house became what I'd always intended it to be, a sanctuary. Mom's garden bloomed spectacularly that next spring. Dad taught fishing workshops for local kids. They hosted family dinners for Emma, and her family for me when I could visit eventually, even for Tyler when Chloe agreed it was okay. They'd learned to set boundaries. When distant relatives would call asking about Leo, they politely said they weren't discussing it. When Aunt Beatrice tried to guilt-trip Mom into reaching out to Leo, Mom calmly told her that their relationship with their son was their business, not hers. They'd found their spines, and it was beautiful to see. For me, the whole experience was transformative in ways I didn't expect. I'd always been good at protecting others, fighting for my clients, advocating in courtrooms. But I'd never been particularly good at protecting myself or enforcing boundaries in my personal life. Leo's betrayal taught me that love doesn't mean tolerating abuse. That family is supposed to be a source of support, not exploitation. That sometimes the most loving thing you can do is refuse to enable destructive behavior. I became a better lawyer because of it. More empathetic with clients dealing with family disputes. More strategic in anticipating how people might manipulate legal systems. More confident in my judgment. And I became a better person. I learned to recognize red flags earlier. To trust my instincts when something felt wrong. To act decisively when people I loved were threatened. To not feel guilty for protecting myself and those I cared about. Leo eventually moved to another state. Last I heard, he was working as a sales manager somewhere, still jumping from job to job, still making excuses. Chloe remarried to a man who set clear boundaries from day one about what he would and wouldn't tolerate. She seemed happier, more grounded. The younger kids were doing okay from what Tyler told me. As for Leo and me, we haven't spoken in over 3 years now. I don't hate him. I feel sad for him, really. Sad that he chose the path he did. Sad that his need for quick money and easy solutions destroyed his family. Sad that he'll probably never understand what he lost. But I don't regret what I did. Not for a second. I protected my parents from abuse. I stood up to bullies both at home and at work. I proved that you don't have to accept mistreatment just because it comes from family. I showed that setting boundaries isn't cruel, it's necessary. And I demonstrated that there are consequences for actions, even when those actions come from people who share your DNA. The lake house still stands by the water, peaceful and beautiful. In the evenings, I sometimes video call with my parents and they take me on a virtual tour of the property. The sunset reflecting off the lake, the loons calling in the distance, the garden overflowing with tomatoes and zucchini, and my parents holding hands on the porch swing gray-haired and wrinkled but smiling. Truly smiling. That's the gift I gave them. Not just a house, but the freedom to enjoy it. The security to live without fear. The peace they'd earned after decades of hard work. And that's the gift I gave myself too. The knowledge that I'm strong enough to do what's right even when it's hard. That I can stand up to anyone, even family, when lines are crossed. That my love and loyalty have limits, and that's not a weakness. It's wisdom. Sometimes doing the right thing means being the villain in someone else's story. Leo will probably tell his version of events for the rest of his life, casting me as the cruel sister who abandoned him. And you know what? I'm okay with that. Because I know the truth. My parents know the truth. And everyone who matters knows the truth. Family isn't about blood. It's about respect. It's about mutual support and care. It's about showing up when it counts and not taking advantage of people's love. Real family doesn't lock elderly parents in rooms. Real family doesn't steal and manipulate and abuse. Real family protects each other. And that's exactly what I did. So here's what I want to know from you. Have you ever had to set a hard boundary with family? Have you ever been the one who had to be the bad guy to protect someone you loved? Drop your story in the comments below, and if this resonated with you, hit that like button and subscribe for more real talk about family boundaries and standing up for what's right. Because these conversations matter. Your story matters. And together we can remind each other that choosing ourselves isn't selfish. Sometimes it's survival.